All right, so no mic. There is a made-up mic I can use. It's no mic, but so you have to forgive me because last time I did this was in Japanese and it was much more academic. So I'll try to adjust a little bit. So I am mostly a historian of Hiroshima. I usually write about very depressing shit, like the history of PTSD and stuff. So this project is a fun project for me and my co-author, Mahon Murphy, where we stop what we're doing usually and wrote about what we like, what we really love, which is music. And more generally, punk music in Kyoto. I mean, that's what's written here if you don't speak Japanese. We just published what we're writing on, what we really, really like, really enjoy when I lived in Kyoto, when I come to Kyoto, is Kyoto's alternative scene, counterculture scene, and a Kyoto music scene. Most specifically, hardcore punk, right? Kyoto is one of the only places in Japan where you have all those alternative spaces. You don't have much of them here, for example. There's only a few. Here in Kyushu, there's some in Hiroshima. They're just spotty there. But in Kansai area, you have a lot of it. And I want to start with giving a little bit of a taste of a festival we just been to 2 weeks ago, Dad? Was it? Yeah. 2 weeks ago. This is in this place called Seibu Kodo, which is the place I'm going to talk about. And this is just a little taste of what's going on there. Yeah. Sorry. There's a slipper, come on. So this is a festival that is happening in this place called Seibu Kodo, which is in Kyoto University area, and it's let me stop it. And it's put a light on, and it's a liberated space, meaning the students took over. Can we put a light on, Raymond? Can you put a light on, please? Thank you. I guess you don't want to see me, right? Turn it down. So it was liberated space, like Kaihoku, because it was taken over by students in '68, and it just stayed liberated. It runs by the students and a council called Sanryokyo, like a liaison council, and it's from 1968 to now. It's run by people in a dorm called Yoshida Dorm. There are two, which is also a liberated space. And it's the only spaces in Japan that are still occupied by students from 1968 to today. And those are free spaces where you have a lot of art and culture and politics happening. And the big question of the book that we published, Don't Be Swindled, is why there? Why do you have this place in Kyoto that produces all this music, all this culture, and you don't have it anywhere else? And we focused on punk because that's what we like, right? That's where I grew up with. That's where I grew up with, in a very different place in Tel Aviv in Israel. But it felt very much like Japan in many other ways. Punk is both global and also very, very local. So the question of the book, right, it's called Don't Be Swindled. It's based on album by this band SOB. Do we have internet? We don't have internet. We do? We try? Shall we try?
Hold on. I think that should be
Okay.
tethered to my phone.
Okay. So me and Mahon, basically, the basic question of the book, basic question of this talk is what produces sound? What produces scene? There's a very, very special scene in Kyoto. It doesn't exist here for sure. I mean, just we don't see it. And if you go to Kyushu University or Ran University, you don't find it. There will be like this one guy with a helmet is there for like 50 years now, right? And he will like give leaflets, but most of the students that I see in Kyushu, they don't give a fuck about this shit, right? They just want to have good grades and, you know, whatever, nice outfits and whatever. They don't have this. So why there and why not other place? So what we tried to figure out was why is there, right? So we based it on oral history, which means we have to, because how do you do a history of something that is not proper, right? No one actually wrote and left like archival documents. In the historian, you need sources, you need Shiryo, right? So, but you don't have this. So what do you do if you want to produce a history of a place like Seibu Kodo and a scene of people who mostly didn't finish high school, didn't write enough a lot, no one really cared about keeping the stuff they wrote on, right? So how do you do it? Mostly through oral interviews. So me and Mahon basically talked to a lot of people from the scene, a lot of like old, well, not old, right? People like maybe 10, 20 years older than me. They used to be in bands like there. It was a lot of fun, but also if you get them to speak, you usually have to get them drunk. And Mahon is Irish, so it was a lot of fun transcribing those interviews. Two gaijin speaking drunk Japanese. One of them is Irish. I don't even understand his English, so it was fun. We also bought a lot of like, we found a lot of stuff in interviews and zines. A lot of like stuff we bought off eBay, stuff we got from other people, flyers. And what we produced was a history of this band SOB. The venue is called Seibu Kodo, and the scene of punk. And I just want to give you a little taste, if internet will allow me. Maybe yes, maybe not. Nothing happens? Maybe? Yes, no, maybe? Maybe not. Yeah. Wait, why is it? Oh, okay. How do I even play it?
You're not singing, right?
Yeah, whatever. Fuck it. Can we go? How do you go back to? Anyway, so our book basically cover one. Sorry, that's too much of a hassle. Yes, man. Just come back to this, yeah. So. Yeah, maybe during the break I'll figure out how to play it because it seems a bit spotty here. So, let me get a bit nerdy because we're here, right? So even academic nerdy. So if you want to write a book, you have to be serious and like make serious arguments, right? Like if you want someone to publish it. So let me be a bit geeky about it, right? It might be boring to some people, but what we really structure the book around is the idea of infrastructure. I mean. So what produces a scene? To have a scene, you need places like this, like where we're standing right now. A place where actually people can come together, right? We can come together thanks to Stuart here and Nerd Nite and Raymond and everybody else that like kind of produced this. People who are really invested, right? But most of the people we talked with, people who produced the punk scene, right? They weren't Kyoto University students. Actually, most of them, 9% of them were like high school dropouts, right? So what produced this scene? How come they have this space, Seibu Kodo? What is their connection because punk didn't come out until the 70s and 80s, to the people who did the 60s, right? So there's a lot of also the issue of like intergenerational conflict. I mean, how their reaction, what is their relationship to the student that occupied the place? What's going on between like the Yoshida dorm, which is very, very political, and the punks who were not very political, right? How do they work with them? Right? How do you sustain this place for like 50 years, right? And also, what it tells about Japan as a whole, because especially with Kyoto, if you think about Kyoto, what do you think about? You think about the geisha and Gion, you know, all this bullshit, you know, people come to see. All the movies of American women coming to Japan and getting lost, like Lost in Translation. You know, we go to Gion. I mean, if you ever been to Kyoto, you know that's not what Kyoto is, right? I mean, who saw a woman in kimono here wasn't like 70 lately, right? We don't see women in Kyoto, but this is what people come, especially women in kimono, especially for Kyoto they come. Think about Kyoto, they think about this kind of Japanese culture, which exists, right? I mean, you do have a Maiko and geisha walking around, right? Mostly it's like Chinese tourists and dressing up, right? But it does exist, right? But this is not Kyoto. This is not Kyoto that I know that I live there. This is not Japan as we know that we live there. Japan is much more thriving, much more diverse place. And it has as much crazy people and strippers on like makeup, how do you call it, whatever, float, right? As you have women in kimono. There's all this stuff. So it's, for me, it's very important because I teach in the States, and most students that come to me to study about Japan, they want to study about, I don't know, anime or samurai. That's their idea of Japan. And I was like, no, Japan is so much more fun and creative, and there's so much more happening, right? And I want to tell them about those people, the people I know, right? But so this book is also part of this, and it's part of this whole. And Kyoto is really a symbol of this, of like this Orientalism that goes towards Japan. And this punk project is actually part of a bigger project about the modern history of Kyoto that I do with friends in Kyoto University and others, where we have different takes on modern history of Kyoto, not Kyoto of like Edo period, whatever, but what's happening now in modern. If you're really interested, there's a special issue. Editor is right here. I guess, yeah, I guess you're not, but academically speaking, right? We have all this stuff about like, war memory in Kyoto and hotels in Kyoto and all this stuff. But anyway, punk is all part of it. So, why do you have this place in Kyoto and not other place, right? So the book is about the 1980s, but basically, but we go way further. We start with what happened in Seibu Kodo in this event space in 20 February 1980, which is a concert of the band, the British band, the Police, who you might be surprised, but they were considered a little bit punk in the 80s, at least in 1980s. I mean, I can't think about staying in punk, but they were for like 5 minutes, right? And when they come to Seibu Kodo in 1980, there is actually a huge incident that happened there. It's called Police Jiken, the police incident, right? And this, what happened is that they go on stage, they play, and then in the middle of the show, a bunch of people storm the stage and try to turn off the speakers and to stop the show. And what happened is that the people who try to do it are the Senyokyo, the people who run the place from the student and artist side, right? And shows there were not supposed to be commercial, not supposed to be commercialized. But the people who saw the show, who brought the police, actually lied to them. They brought their own security. They started beating up kids that were trying to dance. People from the Seinen-kyo got pissed off, and you have all this fight. The police didn't have any idea what's going on. They're like, oh, there's a bunch of crazy Japanese people again, right? But this was actually a very important event in the history of music in Kyoto because it led to all those debates inside Seibu Kodo, in student movement, in the art movement. This is part of their magazine about what can we do about commercialization of music. But that's a big problem to any scene, right? Never mind what music you have, right? You have dance music, punk music, I don't know, unless it's like really commercialized J-pop or K-pop, like stuff that my kids love to hate me. Like that's, of course, like my kids would like K-pop because why not piss off dad, right? But, so K-pop idols, for the most time, they're just shohin. They're like, I say shohin, merchandise, product, right? Like they are produced. But music's not supposed to be, so it's something more authentic, right? More creative, something that comes from the heart, from the soul, right? But the thing is, why did he bring the police to Seibu Kodo? Because Seibu Kodo had this like edge. It has like this alternative edge. If you have a show there, it means that the kids love you, the cool kids love you, the alternative kids love you. But this thing about capitalism that it does it, it's kind of like co-opt the coolness. So you have a cool scene, before you know it, you're going to be like a Starbucks cup, like based on this band or something, right? Like shit like that. That's what the problem. And they have really, really interesting debate about why you do it. And what they decide to do is stop having big name bands. So before that, you have like Frank Zappa and the Stranglers and all those like big, well, I don't know if you guys remember them, but big names. I mean, if you're
Cold.
Fjord. But you had big names, right, going there. But then they stopped to stop it and just have local bands. And this is why you have punk there, because once you stop having bigger names and you have only local bands, that's their then gives an opening for all those bands. Now the people who made the decision were not punks. They were mostly older generation people, right? Who started way before, in the 70s. Oh, you can't really see that. So again, the place was taken over in 68, and from 68 onward, it was this space where you can do whatever you want. So it's kind of hard to believe. They used to have a marijuana festival there. I mean, in Japan, it seems like almost impossible. People were like smoking weed and celebrating this in here. It was a very big center for raising funds for like political activism and sometimes even terrorism. So like the Japanese Red Army. It was a place where anything goes, right? The beginning of this was when in the 1930s it was made up as a dojo, a place for martial arts. But then after the war, it was kind of repurposed to be a cinema, and in the end, again, it was taken over in 68. Now, once it was taken over, right, in the 70s and 80s, it was a space for the student movement, the counterculture, and especially in the 70s, it became really big under the name of Mojo. Mojo West, it became a really big space because what happened is the student movement was very radical, very political, but then it blew up, actually, literally, right? You know, like, they had all those kidnapping and terrorism. There was a big, there was a very big event, if you know about, like, when they kidnap a plane, actually from Fukuoka, like from a JAL plane from Fukuoka. They kidnap it, they're supposed to take it to, they want to take it to Cuba, but they didn't think about fuel, so they took it to North Korea. They're actually still there, the kidnappers. One of them was a member of a band, and it was very, very symbolic because you have all those people kind of coming together, both like music and radicals and artists. But especially in the 70s, when the politics ended, the music and the culture stayed. So you have like Yoko Ono coming there, and a lot of like buto, like modern dance, and theater. And then from there, it kind of go on, and then you have like Frank Zappa and all those people. And then after police, they turn into locals, and then, particularly when they come over, then came the punks. And they open up, especially when the punk kind of exploded in Kyoto, and it became this really big center of what's called Kansai No Wave. And if you haven't seen a show, oh God, I really wanted to show this video, but the internet won't allow it. If you haven't seen a show of a band called Hijokaidan, you haven't seen radical stuff. This is more extreme than anything you've seen. So when Hijokaidan, for example, they will be on stage, they will lock the door, they will put like sheets of plastic everywhere, because those people will like throw fish at the audience and meat. They will pee on the stage. I mean, they will do whatever. The most radical thing that happened there was that one time there was a band that actually brought a bulldozer in. So in the middle of the show, they stop, a bulldozer comes in, like the guy running the bulldozer, they start to demolish the place, and then they want to burn the bulldozer in. Oh, it actually works. Good. So it's really, really crazy shit. Like really crazy shit. Those people, because one thing that we really wanted to show is that, and I guess you guys are familiar with this, right? So what happened is that most Japanese, no offense to Japanese in the crowd, but it will be, if they're shakain, if they're like part of society, they will be pretty conformist. I mean, not just most Japanese, most people in the world, right? But it's a little bit more extreme in Japan. That if you're part of society, you're really part of society, right? You're going to do all the stuff that you're supposed to do as a member of society. But if you get thrown out of society, then it seems to me that there is no boundaries. It gets really crazy and really creative for many, many people. Right? So a lot of, in the West, for example, you can be, you can work in a bank and have a band. Here, much less so. There are people who do this, right? But people who exist outside of society, right? they live in their own society here, right? And they go into real extreme. And what happened is that those places, like Seibu Kodo, gave them the space to do so. They didn't charge them money to do it. They didn't give any limits on them. They're like, just be free and expressive. And the people who did it are mostly of older generations. So what you need to have is this intergenerational cooperation and collective action. So during the 80s, you have this collective called Beat Crazy that worked together with students and older activists to keep this place happening. So you have, again, infrastructure. So even though from the outside it looks really crazy, it looks completely outside of society, but actually it's its own society, the people that produce it, people who work hard to make it happen, to make the scene happen, and make it really unique. It's a place really unique. We end the book, and I'm going to end this talk with this event in 1989. It's called Cry Day, which was like the height of the scene in Kyoto, the end of the 80s. Cry Day was a day to celebrate the death of Emperor Showa, the Emperor Hirohito. So when the Emperor Hirohito died, I guess you all remember, right? I mean, none of you, some of you weren't even born. But in 1989, I mean, I remember I was like in whatever, middle school? Not even middle school, no. I wasn't even elementary school then, right? Everybody here had to be quiet before the emperor died. There was actually mandatory silence. So department store couldn't play their like happy music. There weren't commercials. They were like, everything was really, because everybody had to be sad about Hirohito. The people in Seibu Kodo say basically, fuck it. We're gonna have a big party. So Cry Day or X Day, as they call it here, was a big party, 3 days party to celebrate, but also to learn about the history of Japan. So one part, you have like 40 bands playing, but then you also have the student activists and anybody coming and like giving lectures about like why Hirohito was basically a war criminal, their take on it, and bringing together politics and music. And this could only almost happen in this place, because this place, again, have the infrastructure of the people who kept this place together, and they're still keeping up together to this day. So if you find yourself in Kyoto, and if you should go and check this place out. Thank you. Okay, I went a bit over time, but
right.
yeah.
Like,
I got a mic, so I got really excited.
yeah. Good question. Yes.
You mentioned that a lot of things are often jump-started by politics in the punk scene. Do you see any other catalysts in the future that might bring back such a wave?
Well, I don't want to be too nerdy about it, but I will. So what do you mean by politics, right? So that's a big question, because if you look at punk in like the UK or in Israel where I come from, it's super political, right? So where I come from, the scene I come from Israel, it's super political, it's very, very, very left-wing, very, very left-wing. Very specific about its politics, and also the UK, US, and other places. But in Japan, not much less so. There are a couple of political bands, but mostly because the student activists were so political, and they're seen as such like a Dasai. They really thought they're Dasai, they're like lame, right? By the 80s, student activism, long-haired hippies were really lame for those people. So their reaction was to be apolitical. But it doesn't mean they're not political. It means they're political, but in different ways. Because what we argue is in Japan, to not do as you were told is already political. To play really loud music when the society tells you to be quiet and respect Emperor Hirohito is really political. So politics can be lifestyle. Politics can be like this, giving the finger and living your life the way you want to. It doesn't matter if you're punk or doing a rave or whatever. Lifestyle is political. So as long as there are people who maintain alternative lifestyles here, I think we'll keep going. And you have enough people, because this society can be really, really stifling. Anyone who ever worked in a Japanese company or anywhere, it can be tough, right? There's so many rules that you can't even follow, right? And there's no reason for them, right? So I don't really, again, I'm not from here, so I don't know how people from here feel, but I always feel that I want to tell everybody to fuck off. But this is, I think it will keep going because it's just once it got into the bloodstream of society here, it will keep going. So, and it's still going. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, sorry, I didn't give you the first one. You're
actually, I lived in Kyoto from 1969 to 1976.
Wow.
And I was a medical student, serious medical student. And we know, all people knew that there was a Seibu Kodo, a strange place.
Yeah.
You don't have to go there to study.
Yeah.
But there was something going on there.
Yeah.
And sometimes there must be some concert or something like that.
Yeah.
So I didn't know it was run by the students.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. But all the students knew that there was a strange place in Kyoto.
Yeah.
And also, another thing I want to inform you all is 1969 is the highest point of the student activism.
Yeah.
And at that time, Tokyo University canceled the entrance examination.
Yeah.
And after that, well, I don't know, the specific moment, I don't know, but during I studied medicine in Kyoto University, no year went as scheduled. There was always a strike,
Yeah.
student strike. So I don't know whether they are so strange, but I didn't summarize it to understand, to make myself understand clear. So I have a vague feeling of what was going on at the Seibu Kodo. So I'm very much thankful for this presentation.
Mystery solved.
Thank you. Thank you. This thing doesn't work. It doesn't? Anyway, I'll just talk, whatever.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much. It really means a lot for me that you're saying that you're thankful, because I always feel like an outsider. So the fact that I can tell someone who was actually there in '69, I was like, wow, I hope I did the right thing. So there's still a lot more to write about this era, and there are people writing, like Kyoto University and other people.
And one thing I would think add is probably one of the kind of mindset of Kyoto University is sense of independence.
Yeah.
That is so strong.
Yeah, it's very strong and very independent, very fierce about it. They used to be here also. I don't know if you guys know, but when there's a Ropponmatsu campus of Kyudai, there used to be settlement. You people like go out and like basically occupy a lot of the campus. Kyudai, one reason why Kyudai moved to Itoshima is, I don't know if it's one reason, like, you know, Akashi sensei told me, like one of my friends told me, like, to get out of the city, get out of like activism, get out, like, if you see how Kyushu University is built today, it's kind of like, there's no way that anybody can do anything there. There's no way for students to come together. There's no way for people to come together. There's nothing around it, no bars, there's nothing. It's just like in a hill somewhere. And a lot of universities in Japan did it. Like Hiroshima University also went up to the boonies, like somewhere out there. And if you go, the same thing in American universities, they start building all those like concrete monsters to like stop people taking occupy. Society doesn't like the fact that people are independent, and they'll do something else. And Kyoto University always try to stifle this. They don't want independence, but they managed to kill it here to an extent, not quite. But in Kyoto they can't do it because there's still this live. Still.
We have two questions up front. So left right now.
Oh, I do. Just a quick one. Sorry if you already answered this and I missed it, but where can we get this book?
Online on Bloomsbury. It's a Bloomsbury book. It's this. The book is part of a series which is really great. If you like music, so a series called Territory and a Third. It has like books on like Cornelius and AKB48 also. It's a really good book if you like AKB48. If you don't like AKB48, even better. There's a lot of, so every book is focused on one band, one album. So there's every music you'll think of, from like acid music to jazz and anything. You take one album and you write about a scene or whatever through the album. So yeah, it's Amazon, whatever. Just like Google it. I should have brought some.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Sorry.
Next.
Got the t-shirts and everything.
Yeah, I have merchandise. Yeah, I'm against capitalism. Yeah.
Last question.
Okay, I know about the rise and fall of the student activism, and I know the history, a little bit of the history of the how Japan Red Army people, they kind of faded away. I wonder what made Kyoto, that Seibu Kodo area, made so firm and being independent like this compared to other universities.
Cheap rents. Really. I mean, you think about we thought about a lot. Why Kyoto? So there's a couple of reasons why Kyoto is like this. First of all, there are like 4 or 5 universities within a very small area. So there's a lot of young people. And from the 1930s onwards, you have all this like jazz kisaten, like jazz cafes around. You have like 2 or 3 in Daimyo and other areas around here. But you have like dozens of them in Kyoto. And they can keep existing because unlike here and Tokyo, much more worse Tokyo, the rents are very low. And there's a lot of young people that can keep this. So that's one reason. Another reason is just like people are very active and work actively in it. So the student movement in Kyoto is one of the only places when you still have a student movement active because of Yoshida and Kumano dorm. Every year they come to the clock tower in Kyoto University and they cosplay. Have you seen them? Yeah. So if you've been to Kyoto, it's kind of funny. It's like young people cosplay the 60s, but it's charming. So they go there and there'll be the kidotai. How do you say kidotai? Yeah. Traffic police, the riot police. Like standing in front of them, and it's like they're replaying 1968, but it's still, even though it's like Gakusei Undo Goko, like it's like playing in Gakusei Undo in student movement, it still works, and people are still very familiar. So it's both structural, meaning like the rents, the fact there's no many young people, Osaka is right there, so you have a bigger scene, you can make a living easily from, so a lot of the punks, for example, they work in like tourism or in like making like cloth. They work in Nishijin, like this, not Nishijin. How do you call this?
Textile.
Is Nishijin also? Yeah, the textile. Like there's a lot of places to go outside of like the regular companies in Kyoto. There's also supporters. So there's all those reasons that make Kyoto like a special place. But it used to exist in here, it used to exist in, I mean, one of the things that I did to do this, I was talking a lot about people who used to be active here. There used to be a lot of those folk guerrillas in the 60s. So people will go around with a guitar and they will, this like in Nishitetsu station in Tenjin, there's this like alleyway that you go between, like there's like, there used to be a piano on the stairs. You know what I'm talking about? There's always a demonstration there in Tenjin. There used to be people there playing folk music in the 60s against the Vietnam War. It used to be here also. But here it died out and Kyoto didn't. And because here, again, like Fukuoka got really, really expensive to live in, I guess. It is harder to keep it here. There's no need for it.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a lot of fun.